And she's not the only defector.
Julia Banks, Michael Keenan, Kelly O'Dwyer, Nigel Scullion, Christopher Pyne, Stephen Chobo, Julie Bishop, Anne Swidmarlis and Jane Prentice. What on earth is going on in the Liberal Party?
Well, that's a question I think you need to ask Scott Morrison.
Before politics, you're a very successful corporate lawyer. What attracted you to politics?
I've been asked that question many times. I would look at the Liberal Party from the outside and they were saying they need more women to balance it out. And I thought, well, I'll join the Liberal Party because surely, you know, there were moderates in the party, such as Malcolm Turnbull and Julie Bishop. There were a lot of moderates in the Liberal Party and I thought, I'll join them. But it wasn't until I got in the inside that I realised how bad it was. I imagined that the Liberal Party would be a slick corporate machine. It wasn't that at all. And in relation to women, it was decades behind the business world. I'd just been pre-selected. There was a fundraiser. The committee chair said, oh, here's the run sheet and we'll have, you know, I'll be speaking, says this guy, and Michael Kroger will be speaking and da-da-da. And I said, well, I'm the pre-selected candidate. When am I speaking? He said, don't you worry, darling, we'll give you the raffle. I thought, wow.
You'd suddenly become the barrel girl?
Yeah, exactly. So I made sure I had a speaking gig. I'd experienced, witnessed and observed an entrenched culture of anti-women behaviour.
I have done everything I can to keep the Liberal Party and indeed the coalition united.
Why was Malcolm Turnbull removed from office?
It was based purely on self-promotion. It had nothing to do with the nation's interest. It was purely an act of revenge and people wanting to be in positions of power.
Australians will be just dumbstruck and so appalled by the conduct of the last week.
Who do you blame for the spill?
It was certainly led by Tony Abbott.
We've lost the Prime Minister, but there is still a government to save.
Tony Abbott, Peter Dutton, Greg Hunt, I mean, they were the prime movers. People were making their vote based on promises of promotion or promises of ministerial appointments.
Who did you vote for?
Julie Bishop and Malcolm Turnbull. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the business world, if you laid out the three CVs on the table, Peter Dutton, Scott Morrison, Julie Bishop, you'd turf the other two out and you'd say, she's the one. And Julie Bishop is the Prime Minister we should have had, and we never will have.
The successful candidate was Scott Morrison.
It shows the power of the Conservative force.
And he won this vote by 45 votes to 40 for Peter Dutton.
Scott got up and made a speech and pointed to the photographs and said, there are men up on that wall and there'll be a woman there one day. And I remember Julie saying, which century?
We don't want to see women rise only on the basis of others doing worse.
Julia Banks isn't the only woman who's spoken out in the wake of the spill. Kelly O'Dwyer, Linda Reynolds and Anne Swidmarlis have all called out bad behaviour inside the party.
What sort of bullying went on?
I know for a fact that members were told, if you don't vote for Peter Dutton, your pre-selection will be severely compromised. You just saw deals being made, people saying, I'm going to quit unless I become a minister, or people's silence was being bought. The silence is very valuable to a major party. They attempted to buy my silence when I announced that I wasn't going to recontest the seat. A number of things happened. There were like reprisals and retribution, and the other was Scott Morrison saying to me, we can take you away from all this. We can send you to New York, which was a $50,000 taxpayer junket, as I saw it, to get me out of the country. United Nations, yeah. I just rejected it outright. Ironically, it ended up being given to Anne Swidmarlis, who also spoke out about bullying.
It was about ego-driven ambition, bullying and betrayal, and my local position is completely untenable.
3 days later, she was off to New York. The Labor Party sent Jenny Macklin. I just find it extraordinary the things the major parties get away with.
So both parties are doing it?
Absolutely.
In your resignation speech, you said last week's events were the last straw. I will always call out bad behaviour and will not tolerate any form of bullying or intimidation. Don't you think people would really applaud you if you called out those bullies?
From my experience, what people applaud is respectful debate about policy reform. That's what matters to people's daily lives. I think people are fed up with talking about the internal machinations of the Liberal Party.
No, but I think what people are fed up with is a divided party. Bullies only operate effectively if they're allowed to live in the shadows.
I did not want to exit that place without calling out the culture.
Was Tony Abbott one of the bullies?
Look, I don't think I have to describe anything to the Australian public about Tony Abbott. That's very well documented.
Was Scott Morrison one of the ones that you felt intimidated by?
Look, Scott Morrison, from my perspective, he's a deeply religious man, he's very traditional. So, for example, when he wasn't pleased with my speech about the refugees.
Indefinite detention is no place for any child.
I hadn't even walked back to my office and I received a text from him saying I should have told him before I made this speech. And then this is the party of free speech. I'm still a member of the Liberal Party. I made a speech, so it's like, you know, hang on a minute, if you're a right-wing conservative, you can say whatever you like, but if you speak up about something that you know is important to your electorate, you get a text message, not even a phone call. You know, in the business world, I'd call that a junior manager's error. You know, give them feedback, like pick up the phone.
I'll be looking closely at these issues and I've been talking very directly with my colleagues.
Do you think he was hoping to intimidate you?
You'd have to ask him. I thought that's ridiculous. Like, seriously, really.
Did you text
I'm
him
a big
back?
girl. No, I didn't think it warranted the courtesy of a reply.
In January, Julia announced she was running for the seat of Flinders, challenging her former colleague, Greg Hunt, who was instrumental in toppling the Turnbull leadership.
Look, I will let the individual in question explain her own actions.
Is this a little bit of retribution?
No, look, not at all. I'm a second-generation Mornington Peninsula family. My parents lived down here for many years. I'm just going to work really hard. They're throwing everything at it. Apparently he's spent over $50,000 already, which is my entire budget. From my point of view, I just want to be a good local member. I want to spend all my time and energy not on name calling, and that's what the Australian people want too. The change is up to the people of Australia.
But they don't feel like they have any say at the moment in Australian politics.
No, they will have their say at the next election, and they will have choice at the next election because they will have the two major parties, but they've also got some very strong independents. I believe that's the marvellous thing about being an independent, because you can be that person.
Lisa, I know she's no longer a member of the Liberal Party and is running as an independent. I cannot believe what I've just witnessed in terms of the way she just dumped on the Liberal Party and naming people.
That's why she left. She didn't like the culture anymore.
But I mean, naming Morrison, naming Dutton, naming Abbott, talking about Julie Bishop being the Prime Minister we should have had and never had. I mean, it's incredible.
It is incredible. And I think we've seen in recent times with Kerryn Phelps getting into Parliament in such a safe seat as Wentworth, Malcolm Turnbull's former safe seat. And we've got Zali Steggall that's well ahead in the polls in the seat of Warringah, Tony Abbott's seat. And I must say, when we did that walk and talk in the Mornington Peninsula, I couldn't find anybody that wanted to tell me they were going to vote for Greg Hunt. I kept going up to people. Everyone wanted to come and talk to...
Could you imagine how heated it would be if the Liberal Party managed a minority and need those independents to get anything through the negotiations?
I said to Julia, please, if you end up, there's a hung parliament and you get to decide, can you please not do a Roebuck shot? We don't need another 17 minutes.